Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya DeMello, and I'm the Director of Human Rights at Ryerson University. A few years ago, my mother and I were having an argument, as you do with your parents. And at one point I said to my mom, "You literally said something right now that contradicts something you said 2 minutes ago." And she said, "So what? Everyone does that. And by the way, I think both of the things I said." And she walked away. She left me perplexed, but I believed that I won the argument. But that conversation stayed with me for many years. And then I read an article in which this idea of contradiction reemerged for me again. The article was written by a young mother, and she talked about what it meant to live with ambivalence. So she used this example where she said, "I want nothing more than to be with my child for every waking breath, step, and moment. And I want nothing more to be all alone in peace with nobody pulling at my leg." And she said the struggle with living with this ambivalence, which is to have two contradictory feelings at the exact same time, was that you start to believe that one of them can't be true. And so there are so many young mothers living with those two feelings that start to wonder if their need for peace, for quiet, means that they don't love their child enough and that they're actually a bad mother. So what she offered was that if we could all accept the fact that both of those contradictory feelings existed at the same time and were valid, we might be able to free ourselves from some of that guilt. So I went back to the conversation with my mother, and I asked her, "How do you live so comfortably with all your contradictions?" And what she said was transformative. She said, "All of us have things about us that we cannot reconcile. And so what we do is we try to present this one-dimensional view of the world so we don't look two-faced or contradictory. So we can only show one compelling, perfectly clear narrative, and we can win an argument. We can say this is who we are. We can clearly delineate between right and wrong. And it just makes life feel more simple. But in truth, deep down within all of us, there's nuance, and it's never actually that clear." So I started to think about what my contradictions were. And here are just a few. That I want nothing more than to go out every weekend and dance all night with my friends, but I want nothing more than to be at home on a Friday night in my pajamas at 7 p.m. and in bed by 9. That people at work make fun of me because I spend so much time composting and recycling because I love and care about our environment, but I fly on the weekends more than anybody I know. That I care about animals, and I actually think being vegetarian is our way forward, but the only thing I like better than a burger is a burger with bacon. That I came to this country when I was 4 years old, and Canada has given me and my family everything. I am so proud to call Canada my home. I am so proud to go abroad as a Canadian. But then when I think of what our nation has done to the Indigenous people of this land, the erasure and the continued failure and irresponsibility around reconciliation, I feel shame as a Canadian. And I realize that I'm actually plagued by these contradictions, but also that in presenting just one side of myself, I can make that great case my mom's talking about, and I can be a model of virtue and values, but the actual contradictions don't go away, and it leads to enormous guilt. So the first thing that I've learned is that in accepting my contradictions and in living in ambivalence, I'm able to free myself from some of this guilt. I do love my aging parents, but sometimes I can't visit them every weekend, and that doesn't make me a terrible daughter. I pay for the gym, and I have every intention of going. But sometimes I've had a really difficult day, and I need to let myself off the hook when I need to sleep in. I think that our contradictions and accepting them for what they are can really free us of that guilt that is such a burden. Now here's what I think you're going to expect me to say next. That what this is actually about is self-love and self-compassion. And if we all just accept that we're filled with all of these contradictions, then things will be perfect and everything will be just fine. But instead, I'll tell you that the second thing I've learned is that living in ambivalence is terribly messy. I don't think we can just accept our contradictions and go from there. I think we have to sit in that unsettled feeling and figure it out. Maybe those young parents need to find a little time alone, not because they don't love their kids enough, but because rest is important, balance is important, because we need to teach our children that they need time for themselves and that self-care is important. Maybe I don't need to get bacon on my burger, but I can get a burger once in a while. Maybe on weekends when I feel like I just can't do anything more, I don't have to visit, but I can always call my parents and see how they're doing. Finally, the most important thing I've learned from allowing myself to live with ambivalence is that there is so much room left for me to love other contradictory souls. I realize that when we present ourselves in this one-dimensional, perfect narrative, it's hard to see the nuance in others. So everyone else seems like a liar or like a fraud. I see this so much in my day job and in my political life, that we have now gotten to a point where everybody is just one thing. I hear us say things like, all conservatives are racist. All liberals have no sense of family values. All bankers don't care that the Amazon is on fire. Environmentalists couldn't care less about the economy. We hear one thing from our neighbor that incenses us, and we never speak to them again. We are enraged by hypocrisy, by pandering, by people shifting values or views. In hearing one view of a person and knowing one dimension of them, we determine that that is everything. I lived a lot of my life in that place, and I think it's a place where we all are right now politically. But in learning to live with my own contradictions and live in ambivalence, I've been able to hear people a tiny bit better. I've been able to accept viewpoints that are absolutely inconceivable to me and still see the humanity of the person that holds that viewpoint. And for me, this is the future of dialogue and the future of interaction. And again, once you get there, I still find it very, very messy. I think we cannot just say, I accept you for all of your contradictions and let's move on. We need to wrestle with each other. We need to listen to each other. But I think if we can accept that people hold views that seem contradictory to us and that may actually be valid for their lived experience, we might get a little bit further. I saw this amazing meme that said, we always told our children not to talk about religion or politics at the dinner table. Maybe we should have taught them how to talk about these things and how to listen to others. So that's where I am. That for me is the future of human interaction and dialogue, is that we need to occupy this messy, ambivalent space. We need to, all of us, think about what are our own contradictions and how can we let ourselves feel unsettled and uncomfortable so that we actually navigate them and come up with a response that meets some of our needs. And I realize that when I'm talking to my mother or a neighbor or a stranger, that instead of trying to pick them apart for every contradiction, I need to listen to their complexity, to their intersectionality, to their incredible diversity, to their contradictions that make them completely whole. Thank you.